This is the Grind to Greatness podcast, your dose of unapologetic tough love. These are your hosts, Mary Hodges and Ashley Kane.
Hey everybody, it's Ashley Kane. Welcome to the Grind to Greatness podcast. I got my co-host here with me, Mary Hodges, and this week's episode is all about you. We're talking about me time because if you don't like yourself, who will, right? We're going to kick off into some statistics and also going to talk about some ways that other people get me time, hopefully give you some fresh ideas. And maybe if you don't have any me time right now, it's something that we can all integrate into our regular routine.
And the reason this is important, which we are going to share some science with you later, but understand that when we introduce a topic to you guys, there's usually some form of science that backs up what we're saying and shows why it's important. And me time kind of piggybacks off the last two episodes that we've had. We talked about the power of no and getting your time back and really feeling like you have control over your schedule and your fulfillment and your happiness. Then we went into talking about why we should all stop multitasking and being able to get your time back in that way and or spend quality time with the people around you. Now this episode focuses on finding that quality time with yourself and what benefits that can do for you. So Ashley, why don't you kick it off with some statistics?
There's 5 major stressors that people have reported that they really feel that takes away from their me time or just puts stress on their life in general. So money obviously is a huge one. Work life, family responsibilities, personal health concerns, and also health concerns that affect another family member. And actually, millennials report feeling the highest levels of stress, which I think makes sense because of all the pressure with social media and images. I can totally see that. So me time can be defined in a couple different ways. One of them is time to yourself. No one else is around. It could be meditation, reading, walking, whatever. We'll discuss that in a minute. The other part of me time is doing something you value, whether it's hanging out with friends, going and doing a certain activity, exercise, things like that. And actually, there's a pretty complicated relationship with alone time. And though we often feel a constant connection because of social media, we're actually on our own more than ever. There's a disconnect because we're not building those personal, intimate relationships, although we are being social. So there's a bit of a disconnect and a difference there. Actually more people are single. Supposedly 4 million people live alone. That's a statistic that we found. And then also people are getting married later in life. So we need to learn how to have more quality time with ourselves, because if we don't like ourselves, who will?
Yeah, and that's to kind of share with you that the feeling of being alone, that feeling of loneliness, which people equate to as something very sad, that's not the same thing as getting quality time with yourself. And we want to make that distinction that even though people are really connected and they report feeling more alone, that doesn't mean that you spending time alone means you're lonely, or that somehow spending time by yourself is negative. We want to share with you all the positives. And that brings us kind of to something new that we're doing in our podcast, which is going to be the science segment. I mentioned earlier that the stuff that we talk about is backed up by neuroscience, research, data. We just aren't out here making this stuff up. And the reason this is so cool to me is because when we understand the real connection that our mind and bodies have on our perception of life, on our success, we can use that as a tool to move us in the right direction. So when you understand how the brain works, how the mind works, how the body, and all those 3 things work together, we can make it work for us in a good way and not against us. Because a lot of people don't realize that your brain and your body and your mind are actually working against you because of the habits you formed. So we're going to cover a little bit of science for you about why solitude, time alone, time to yourself with no distractions can provide significant benefits to you. A lot of the benefits that people are finding is that time by yourself allows you to recharge and unwind. Not having distractions, not being bothered, being able to just sit quietly allows you to recharge. You can think deeply. That time alone gives you the ability to think about those deep questions you have about your life. Where am I going? What do I want to do? What is life about? What's the meaning for me? What's my purpose? It's hard to really think about those things when you have a lot of distraction in your life. Time alone also helps improve concentration and increase productivity. There's a lot of data out there to show that you have a higher capacity for concentration when you're by yourself. I'm sure a lot of you that work around a lot of people can attest to that. You probably get more things done when you don't have a lot of distraction. And that also shows that study groups, for instance, are not as effective as studying alone. Time by yourself can also help you work through problems more effectively because you have that ability to think deeply. You have that ability to think outside the box and be more creative. This is my favorite. It also gives you the opportunity to discover yourself. We keep going through life kind of just waking up and going without really thinking deeply about anything. And once you learn more about who you are and appreciate who you are, you can really start to appreciate the things around you. And then it also enhances the quality of your relationships with others. I'm going to share some personal stuff about that later and why I know that to be true. But I think that's, a huge, huge benefit of solitude, time with no distraction.
It kind of goes back to the yes and no episode that we talked about. And all these benefits are amazing. And I'm shaking my head yes, I can see that. I can see that. And the more you can make time for yourself, the more you can tell other people no, which seems kind of harsh, the more time you can tell yourself yes. I love the part about giving you an opportunity to discover yourself, because if you can know ahead of time how you might react to a situation, you can then plan your reaction a little bit better. You know how your feelings are going to be. You know how you're going to react to certain situations. And also making yourself better is going to, if you can't make yourself better, then you can't be better for someone else. So all of these things are really solid and on point.
And then there's some science around me time. We mentioned 2 types of me time: solitude, no distractions, being alone, and then time that you basically have control over, where you think the time spent is valuable, whether that's exercise, having a good conversation with a friend, whatever the case may be. People who experience high quality me time, whether that's, you're with other people or not, enjoy a better work-life balance, well-being, and we're more engaged at work. And this is because if people take time out to recharge their batteries and they believe that time spent was high quality, no matter what they're doing during that time, this reaps benefits for their own psychological well-being. They also have improved family relationships. And again, they're more likely to perform better at work. The reason I think we want to do this episode is because we know that there's a lot of challenges around people getting me time. And we're going to go into some personal anecdotes of people that we've talked to, what their challenges are and what their solutions are. So before we do that, though, I think it would be important for us to share times that we in our personal lives, how we manage to get me time. So Ashley, why don't you tell everyone what it is that you do to get your own me time?
I actually took something from Marie Forleo. She's one of my favorite people. She calls them non-negotiables. Your non-negotiable is something, obviously, that you are going to do no matter what. It has to come into your schedule during that day. My non-negotiable is working out, making myself breakfast, a green smoothie, something to nourish my body, and also spending time working on my podcast. There's so many things that you can do in a day, and focusing on making the most of my minutes is really where my non-negotiables are. And in the past, I've allowed people to rob me of my time, doing petty errands, doing things that they could have done on their own, and me saying yes to those things just because fear of telling someone no and them not. I know it seems really petty, but I think subconsciously them not liking me or something, it goes along those lines. So it's, like I said, it's super subconscious. Allowing people to rob me of my time. And I love doing stuff for people. Don't get me wrong. I'm super giving, but it's almost to a fault. So that's why I mentioned the no and the yes thing, because I've learned to say no to things that shouldn't be my responsibility or doesn't benefit me. And I've learned to say yes to adventures and things that I would normally say no to.
That's great, Ashley. I think that's, totally ties in with our episode about the importance of saying no and having a reason for knowing the things that you are going to say yes to in your life, because those are the things that are moving you towards your vision. So my most important me time is my morning routine. This is because, I feel like if I can start the day off on a good note, if I can be centered, if I can begin, before the chaos of work starts, if I can begin my day in a peaceful way, doing things that energize me, I know that that's going to give me momentum throughout the day. I grew up in a huge family, one of 6 kids, second oldest of 6. So there was always chaos in my house. When I was younger, I used to be afraid of quiet just because I didn't know any better. My life, our house was always so loud. You can just get an idea of what life is like when you have a lot going on in your household. And it wasn't until after I left law school and moved back to St. Louis from Miami, I lived on my own for the first time. I had always either had a sibling roommate, a college roommate, a law school roommate. For the first time, I lived on my own. And I really started discovering myself and started liking to be around myself and really enjoying that quality time I had to kind of figure out who I was. And I've learned that I think I'm more of an introvert than I used to believe I was. I used to think I was totally extroverted. And I think that was because I didn't even have the opportunity to know that I was an introvert. So for me, the morning routine, when I can wake up, make my coffee, read my book, think about the goals I have in my life, what I'm doing each day to move that forward. To me, my gratitude list. So there's a lot of things that I do in the morning to ensure that, I'm getting that quality time in. And I know for a lot of people out there, especially moms with young kids and dads with young kids, somebody that's taking care of an elderly parent, that could be really difficult. So we definitely want to make sure we leave you with some ideas on how you can get your own me time.
We did a lot of surveying on this topic. I talked to a lot of different types of people with kids, single people, young, old. Most people with kids, they said that they get their me time in the car, like on their commute to work, on their, commute home. They really didn't plan it out. Another set of people told me that they will just get like 15 minutes alone on their balcony, which I thought was really cool. Or they will... What was it, Mary, on your Facebook post? A lot of people were sharing what they did for me time.
Yeah, so I personally asked, because I know it's really challenging for parents. So I asked parents, how do you get me time? What do you do to get it? And if you don't get it, what are the challenges you have around that? There was a couple interesting things that I found from people, especially parents of younger kids. I had one parent said that they don't really care very much about me time because when it's both parents in a household are working, or if you're a single parent, you're definitely working. And so when you do get that opportunity to spend time with your kids, you want to make sure that's well spent and you're not as concerned with yourself because you are away all day from your kids. There were a lot of parents that didn't seem to be very concerned about me time, but they still somewhat manage 10 or 15 minutes here or there. And I thought that was interesting. So I know some people said, obviously when after you put your kids to bed, there's a window of time where you might be able to get a bath or just read a book or do something, have some downtime. My mom used to put us to bed at 8 o'clock and it used to really make me mad. But now I get it because that was her only time after, there were 6 of us. That was her only time to have quiet in the day. Some people have me time early in the morning. They might wake up a few minutes early and be able to, watch a trashy reality show, one of my friends said. Another person just says they're creative. They just squeeze it in when they can. When you have kids especially, or when you're just in a job or you got a lot going on, things are thrown at you. You have to kind of learn to be spontaneous. So, they basically say, well, when my kid's at practice, if I'm sitting in the car waiting, I might read a book or things of that nature. One person likes to get their hair and nails done. That's their me time. Some people like to, when they're at work, take along, on their lunch break, make sure that time is well spent by themselves. things of that nature. So I thought that was really cool. Oh, the shower was a huge one. We talked about that before we hit the record button. A lot of people get their me time in the shower. So I think if you're out there struggling to just get that time alone, to get that time where you can calm and center yourself, just be creative. We have a lot of moms and dads out here that are super creative with their time.
We have some other ideas for getting me time and getting that alone time. Going for a walk or a run, meditating would be super huge. Now that does take practice, I will admit. Reading, even if it's only for 10 or 15 minutes. Hanging out with people who have nothing to do with work, meeting some new ones. Also, a lot of people do it in the shower, on their lunch break. Maybe they switch off with a friend, watching kids for a few hours. Some people said they do it in the car. They'll listen to podcasts in the car, which is awesome. They go to the gym that has a kids club so they can drop the kids off. They wake up a few minutes early, nap time. So there's tons of different ideas. And like Mary said, just getting creative and getting a little bit of time in for yourself each day is going to make you way better for your family and friends.
Yeah, I read an article. It was really, really great. And we'll share it in the show notes, but it was a mom that talked about all these creative ways that you can get me time. And one of those, she said she shares a babysitter. So her and a couple of her other friends that might have young children, they share a babysitter, that will watch a couple of the kids at a time, and they're able to go do stuff with each other and have that quality time, as adults. Another one does driving naps. I thought this was awesome. So she puts her kids in the car during their nap time. They fall asleep instantly once she starts driving, and she might just park the car with the AC on at a park or roll the windows down and just sit there quietly and read a book, but kind of change her scenery, change her environment so it's not the same, what am I going to do at home when my kids are napping? I just thought that was so creative. So I know you guys out there that are having challenges with me time can think creatively about what you can do in your own life to get that time.
Before we get into some action items that you can take away, I really just wanted to break down the importance of this episode and some of the other episodes we've had. It's really about owning your own happiness. And I watched a video actually a little bit before we were thinking about this episode, and it was TD Jakes. And even if you're not into his speaking, he has some great points. So his point was own your own happiness. No one else or no material thing can make you happy. You have to do it for yourself. Your spouse can't make you happy. Your friends can't make you happy. So that goes along with this whole me time theme. And also put time in your calendar for yourself, which we'll get into that in a few minutes. But just as an overall mindset, not just physically putting your calendar, but the mindset. Because I said this a few times already, and I learned this the hard way. Sacrificing and putting myself second to put someone else first. I can't be that best person for them if I'm not the best person for myself. And I always quote E.T., but we're going to use this hashtag for this episode. You owe you. You owe you. You owe it to yourself to be your best self.
That's awesome. I love that. Making the date with yourself. And it's really about learning to enjoy your own company. I think the challenge for some people, our mission here is to get you guys to wake up, get you guys to just start living with intention, to think about where you want to go, to not just wake up and go through the motions and let life happen to you, but let you happen to life. And I think for some people, the fear of that alone time where you get to reflect and you get to discover yourself and you get to think deeply is really challenging at first, because you are confronted with a lot of the realities about your life that you may not be happy with. It's easier to ignore those things for a lot of people than it is to face them and become aware of them. But we always say here that awareness is power. Understanding where you are in your life, your circumstance, getting clarity around who you are now, how that may not be serving you, what you want, and what you have to do to get there, that is powerful. So I think it's the self-reflection piece that somewhat scares people about that alone time sometimes, because yes, when you do have the time to spend alone, I've learned more about myself since I've lived alone than I have prior 20, however many years of my life when I didn't live alone. And yes, sometimes you are faced with some challenging self-reflective thoughts that you have to deal with and work through when you're spending that time alone, but it's totally worth it. You know, we just want you guys, like we said, we want you guys to learn to enjoy your own company, because if you don't, who else will? And what, like Ashley said, you have to show up for yourself just as good as you're showing up for other people. And when you show up for yourself 100%, you'll be able to show up for those other people that you've always been putting first even better. I think one thing too we wanted to mention was some creative things that you can do on the commute to work. Ashley, do you want to take that away?
This is pretty funny. So singing your heart out to music, or one thing I also thought of when you said the whole screaming thing, I think, or like sticking your head out the window and screaming, or singing your heart out to music. So there's tons of scientific benefits that it enhances your mood, it lowers stress. Just think, if you have your head out the window, you're screaming, you're not frowning, you're probably smiling and laughing at yourself because you looks stupid. And then a lot of people listen to a podcast like this one or an audiobook. They drive in quiet. This is one of my favorites. They just turn the radio off and just be still and enjoy your surroundings, enjoy nature, enjoy the quiet time. And then a lot of people who take public transportation, they'll read a book, they'll look at their goals, they might meditate, they got their earphones in, stuff like that.
So let's leave you guys with some action items that you can take now to start to get more me time for you. For one, it's going to be determine an activity, whether it's 10 minutes in solitude by yourself, reading a book, meditating, going for a walk, meeting a friend for coffee. Determine something that if you could do that, you would feel that it would bring value to you. It's got to be freely chosen. It's got to be something you enjoy, and it's got to be something that you believe has a perceived value. Okay, it's all about you. It's not what we want for you. It's about you. Then you're going to literally put it in your calendar. I think the challenge is that people don't plan me time. They just get it when they can. But let's be intentional about it. Let's make a date with yourself. So if you're going to remind yourself to take your kids to practice or to go on this networking event, remind yourself to get some me time also. So literally schedule it in your calendar. Whether you use a paper calendar or whether you use an electronic calendar that will send you reminders, put it in there and make a date with yourself and keep it. And then you're going to set boundaries. Let the other people around you know that, hey, this is important to me. In order for me to be better, to show up better for you, this me time is important to me. So if you have family members or a spouse or your kids, communicate your desires around getting this time. Ask them that you want let them know you want their support and maybe you need their help. Maybe somebody needs to watch the kids for a few minutes, but set those boundaries with people and let them know that it's important to you. And then, of course, when you are having your me time, whatever that may be, disconnect. Okay, make sure you're disconnecting from social media. You're not being distracted. Disconnect and really, really spend that time with yourself or with whatever activity that you place value on. And then the last thing is just do it. Okay, don't cancel that date with yourself. Keep that date on the calendar and follow through.
If you're hesitating on your alone time, your me time, and second guessing yourself, just do the 5-second rule, man. Just count back. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. I know we've talked about it a shit ton of times. You guys are probably tired of hearing about it. But the 5-second rule is amazing. Read the book. Check out the audiobook. It's something you can do for your me time. We love you, Mel Robbins. Is that it? Do you have anything else?
No, that's it. All right, y'all. We are signing off.
Peace.